And here we are live, Mike Cagley with Brad Sturdy. We're doing heat checks and Hail Marys. We're doing kind of a Sunday night fireside chat to go back into history. I think that's the only thing really comparable to what we're doing, Brad.
Yeah, maybe so. I feel, sometimes I feel like I need to be in a wheelchair, but I don't know.
Well, I tell you what, this has been a heck of a week. You know, we got a chance to take a little bit of a breather on college football because I got to be honest with you, I don't really tune into Army, Navy, and so I'm admitting that's one thing I've never done because for me, if you're not ranked, I ain't watching. But this week,
wait, Army was ranked, Mike.
Yeah, I know, but you got to have somebody more interesting than Navy. Although, you know, who knows? You know, yet another prediction down the toilet. So, but we did have a awesome Saturday watching college basketball. I mean, there were some excellent games on, and of course, this week we're turning our attention to what I think is going to be one of the greatest 24 hours of my life. The CFP first round playoffs that start at 7:00 on Friday night. Notre Dame goes to face in-state rival Indiana, and that takes us into Hail Mary number 1, the CFP playoff. And I'm going to give you predictions, which you can immediately run out to your bookie and do exactly the opposite of what I say and probably clean up. But let's start, Brad. Let's start with the upstart number 10. Indiana Hoosiers facing number 7 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And I think Indiana's Curt Cignetti should not only be the Big Ten Coach of the Year, I think he should be the National Coach of the Year. Getting double-digit wins for the Hoosiers has never, ever been done before. I think they are the best story going in college football today.
I think they should be. I don't know that they are. I mean, they might be the best, but they're not. They're definitely not getting the hype that other teams have gotten. So, but yeah. I agree with you completely. He's Big Ten and National Coach of the Year. Totally agree.
Yeah. Now, Notre Dame, on the other hand, has played extremely well since their humiliating defeat at the hands of the Northern Illinois Huskies. I had to mention that. And
that's just for Tony Cordero, right?
That was my ode to Tony Cordero, our producer, who has Notre Dame tattoos throughout his body. I'm trying to get him to get a little teardrop with an ND inside of it. He's still on the fence on that. So I think Indiana is I think it's a tough team. But Brad, as much as it pains me to say this, because fans know that I'm a big baby when it comes to Notre Dame. I don't like them. But I think Indiana's Cinderella story is going to come crashing down to an end Friday night at the hands of the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I do too. I was planning on going to this game just for entertainment. I was going to make the trip to South Bend and then go down to Columbus for Saturday. That was my my plan. But I got to work Friday night. So something came up. So it happens. But and then I got the bragging rights game Sunday. That would have been a heck of a weekend. But
that would have been a great weekend.
I kind of agree with you. I really agree with you. I think Notre Dame is playing much better, obviously. They've shown that they can lose, though. And you know, I think this is going to be a good game. I think there's going to be some points put up by both teams. And I think but I think Notre Dame wins. The home game, it does make a difference. I really think that matters in this one.
I totally agree with you, and I do think it's really, really a challenge for this Indiana team to be in this type of environment. They've done that once with Ohio State, and now the ratchet goes up even higher in terms of pressure. The winner goes to the All-State Sugar Bowl and faces Georgia on New Year's Day at 7:45 p.m. And don't think that those CFP and college football powers that be, don't think they don't want to see the television audience that Notre Dame brings playing that massive SEC audience that will be following the Georgia Bulldogs in prime time on New Year's Day.
Huge ratings.
Yeah. Now, next up on Saturday morning, so basically I'm probably going to do pizzas on Friday night. So then next up on Oh, I'm already planning this out. I can't wait. So next up on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. is the matchup where the Dallas-based SMU Mustangs, ranked number 11, will go up to face number 6 Penn State at Beaver Stadium with the expected temperature somewhere in the high 20s. Now, I think Kevin Jennings and the Mustangs offense is pretty impressive. I am not certain that they're going to be able to deal with that Nittany Lion defensive line. I think that is going to be a problem, and I'm not certain how they're going to stop that Penn State rushing attack.
I agree. I think Penn State will win this game. They're just better. I mean, they have more talent. They are more physical up front. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to stop the run, which hurts SMU. I think SMU's good. Their quarterback's, he's an athletic dude, and he made some play. His second half against Clemson was pretty special, but first half not so much, right? So the last, they made that comeback, but I just don't see how they lose I don't see how Penn State loses. But I will also say Penn State has a tendency historically with James Franklin at the helm to find a way to lose some games like this. So
yes, they do.
So, but no, I think the Nittany Lions win this one.
Yeah, I think this is another intriguing matchup, and if Penn State wins this, they go to Boise to play Boise State in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Eve. So you've got, again, another interesting game there. And folks, I have to throw down a warning to you. This SMU team has dollars behind it that even the Texas Longhorns and the Texas A&M Aggies, even their boosters are respectful of the pockets of SMU. So I don't think that SMU is a one-year anomaly. I think this thing is going to start cranking up.
Yeah, now they can do it legally.
Yes, exactly. The Pony Express.
Pony Express.
Which, hey, anybody who knows me at Muhammad, I actually started the number 19 there. Nobody ever had it because I was such a fan of Eric Dickerson. And so I wore 19 and loved that number. And it was all because of Eric Dickerson, who was the coolest man on the planet when he got the ball back there in that SMU backfield. All right, so at 3 o'clock, this is the game that I really, even though number 12 Clemson visiting number 5 Texas, on paper, it's a hard one to pick out because we don't know what Clemson or Texas team will show up. Will we see the Clemson team that Georgia wiped out 34-3? Or will we see the Clemson team that rallied to beat SMU with a last-second field goal? For that matter, Texas lost its first game to Georgia 30-15 in a game that wasn't nearly that close. And yet they were able to go into Texas A&M on the road in a horrible environment and beat Texas A&M 17-7. Now I'm picking Texas, Brad, but a Dabo-led team in a game like this gives me a little bit of concern. So if there's an upset, I think it'll be Clemson, but I just can't go against the Lamborghinis of the Longhorns.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup because I don't think Clemson is that good, but at the same time, I'm not sure Texas is that good. Like, I mean, I'm not. The thing about Texas is, you go in those last weeks before they beat Texas A&M. Did they have a good win? I mean, Michigan looked like a good win. Time is like, oh, marquee game, Texas, Michigan.
Yeah.
Well, Michigan, like outside of the 1 week when they play Ohio State, they kind of suck this year. So I don't know. I just feel like this Texas team they got to show me something. Is Quinn Ewers the guy? Is he a guy who can lead them to a national title? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm really not either.
Sure. I'm not either. And despite what he tells Brian Bosworth, maybe he needs a backup.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I would say this. I think that Texas they have more talent, especially on up front. I really like what Texas can do there. And so I think they come away with the win here. But I'm with you. I don't think, Dabo's been there, right? I mean, Dabo's been there. I mean, he's won a lot of games. So, I mean, we were, shoveling dirt on his grave, a couple of years ago because he didn't embrace the portal. By the way, he got a portal transfer. It's like his first time in the portal, right?
I know.
So,
I know. It was
pretty
like,
cool.
Yeah, people didn't know what to do.
So, but no, I'll take Texas too.
Yeah, that was kind of the way I was looking at it. Now the winner probably the Longhorns, in our opinion, are off to meet Arizona State on New Year's Day at noon in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. And I think that's going to be a fun game because I do think that Arizona State team is playing as well as anybody right now. And while they may not have the chops of being in the Big Ten or SEC, I think they are going to be a handful, and it should be an entertaining game that next week.
They can put up points, man.
Yes,
Arizona State can put up some points. That's gonna be fun to watch.
Now the marvelous 24 hours of football wraps up at the 7 p.m. game. I think this is going to be the best game of the round.
No doubt.
Number 9 Tennessee at number 8 Ohio State, and I think these two teams, along with Georgia and Oregon, when they are playing at their peak, are probably the 4 best teams in college football. But with Tennessee and Ohio State, you don't necessarily know when they are going to be on. And you have Ohio State with an embattered Ryan Day. He has to win this game. Ohio State fans are not happy with him after the Michigan loss. And I'm wondering if this might have been a better game on the road for the Buckeyes if things go bad early in the game. Because I think if this goes sideways, I think the Buckeyes could really lock up. And in any event, Brad, I think the Volunteers are going to pull off the upset and gain the right to battle Oregon in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day.
That would not surprise me at all. But here's my take. I still think Ohio State is the most talented team in the country. I think they are the best team, but they do not have the best coach. And I'm not trying to say Ryan Day's a bad coach.
Right.
He's just not. I think he just has a great talent, right? Now, here's my thing about this game, though. At Ohio State, if Ohio State gets off to a good start, the fans are going to be going nuts. It's going to be crazy.
I agree with
it's
that.
going to be wild. But I wonder how long, if Tennessee gets off to a good starter, this is like a 3-3 game, and it's just a grinder. How long does it take those fans to turn on those guys? I mean, they might be booing them. I mean, it could be because they're angry.
Yes.
I mean, had they beat Michigan, obviously they're the 2 seed. They're in a bye. All they do is beat Michigan. And they're a 2 overall seed. Right? I mean, well, maybe not. I guess they would have played. They've been to 5, right? If they lose to Oregon. They've been right there, right? They had different matchup. They've been playing like a Clemson or SMU or something like that. Instead, I mean, they're the 8-9 game. And I don't know. I think Tennessee's good. I think they're well coached. I don't know that they have the straight talent that Ohio State has. So I'm a talent guy. I think, and I've been riding the Buckeyes all year, right? I think that they're the best team talent wise.
Yeah.
So I got to pick the Buckeyes. But if you pick Tennessee, I'm not shocked. They wouldn't shock me if Tennessee won, but I'll take the Buckeyes.
Yeah, this should be.
And you know who really gets screwed in all this is Oregon.
Oh.
How do you go undefeated and you get to play one of the most talented teams in the country, no matter who it is, in the quarterfinals, like one of the top 5 teams in the quarterfinals? Because say what you want about this loss, that one, you can't compare the talent from Arizona State, Boise State, or whatever to what you're going to see from Tennessee and Ohio State,
totally
or even
agree.
SMU or Clemson or Penn State, any of those teams, right? So it's just it's Oregon kind of got the screw job from everybody.
Yeah, I agree totally. They have to. We talked about this last week. They have to go ahead and get. They have to do something in the lines of taking care of the teams in a rank order, not based on if you won a conference or not. So I tell you what, I'm thinking pizza on Friday night, and then I'm thinking the early afternoon lunch on Saturday. I'm thinking chili.
Oh, I was thinking that too. I think that's a great call, Mike.
And then I'm going to wrap it up in the evening with a pasta and some garlic bread.
You could go with some like chili mac. Then.
Oh, we could do that too. We do enjoy
chili.
that as well. People who don't have Steak and Shake or Skyline Chili are questioning what we're talking about, but trust me, the chili mac at Steak and Shake is worth its weight in gold.
If you know, you know.
Yes, exactly. Or if you weigh a lot, you weigh a lot. But anyway, this is America is greatest, at least until the next round when we start it all over again. I can't wait. This is so fantastic. So now let's move on to Hail Mary number 2. Heisman Trophy thoughts. Brad, we saw Travis Hunter. He a wide receiver and a cornerback, a two-way player from Colorado. I really thought the last time I remember a wide receiver and cornerback being an impact player at both positions was back in the late 80s when Roy Green did it for I believe he did it for the Eagles at the time, maybe even the Cardinals. He might have done a little. And I will say Boise State's Ashton Jeanty, he was the runner-up. I thought both players actually deserved the Heisman, and in most years, Jeanty probably would have won it. I mean, so far he's got the fourth most rushing yards in FBS history. He still has one more game to go, and if he gets over 131 yards, he actually breaks Barry Sanders' record. He's doing it in more games, but he has less rushing attempts than Barry Sanders had. So, unfortunately for Jeanty, this year featured the one player who was one of the top players at two different positions. I thought the interesting thing about Hunter was he was the first Big 12 player ever to be first team all conference on both sides of the ball in the same season. He's the first defensive back to win it since Charles Woodson in 97 and the first wide receiver since Devonta Smith in 2020. And he played 1,356 plays, more than 434 more plays than the guy who was in second place behind him in the FBS. So to me, I thought the fact that he was a dominant defensive back, he was a standout wide receiver, his ability to affect the game from either side of the ball was why he won. And Jeanty was amazing, has nothing to be embarrassed about, but this just happened to be the one year that an anomaly was there in front of Jeanty.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, I mean, Charles Woodson had an impact on both sides of the ball, I would say, but
just not as much.
Yeah. Not as much. He may have had a greater impact defensively than Hunter. I think he was a better corner than Hunter, but he didn't have the same impact offensively, obviously. But Jeanty, I think deserves a Heisman. I get it, but when do we see a guy do what Travis Hunter did? We've seen guys rush for lots of yards.
Yes.
When have we seen a guy do what he did? And I think that was the anomaly. He's an anomaly. He's something that nobody else has done. And also to stay healthy doing that, because that's always the kicker, right? Can you stay healthy when you do that? And yeah, just fantastic. I think it's just kind of amazing what he did, and I think he deserves it. So
yeah, totally agree there. Now, Hail Mary number 3. Bill Belichick to UNC. Now, I'm telling you, here's my theory, Brad. I think Bill Belichick must have been tired of being told no from the NFL owners through their young GM and football executives, probably most of whom weren't even born when Bill Belichick started as a special assistant for the Colts in 1975. How hard must it have been for the greatest coach of all time to find out he didn't even make the top 3 finalists for positions like being the head coach of the Falcons?
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't get it. Like I really don't get it.
Well, I think he was inspired. His hiring was inspired by what Deion Sanders has done at Colorado for an unconventional, high risk, but high reward if it works hire. And I think the UNC looks at this and says, we might be able to go outside the mold. I think if Bill Belichick is forced to raise money for NIL with boosters and glad hand boosters after a loss, I think this is going to be the biggest train wreck of all time. But I think if he can market himself as I know how to get you in the NFL. I know people in the NFL. I know what it takes to get there.
Yep.
You come to me, and I think there will be UNC graduates who say, I'm going to go ahead, or UNC fans that say, you know what, I'm going to shell out some dollars for this football program that I wouldn't have shelled out in the past. And I think if he's allowed to operate like that, this could actually be a good hire, especially with the ACC really not having a dominant team right now.
I agree. I think the potential is there for him to be successful. The other thing about it is, like, today, recruiting, I mean, everybody talks about, well, he's going to have to recruiting. Recruiting is transactional more than relational now. I mean, relations are important to get you in the door, but he's got pedigree to get him in the door. At the end of the day, it comes down to transactions. Like, this school is going to give me, I mean, oh, wait, you can't use pay per play. Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. This school is giving me $500,000. Can you match it? Okay. If you can't, then I'm probably going to go here. But if you can give me $500,000, match it, and I can play for a guy who's an NFL coach, so be it. Exactly. So I think that's where he has a chance to be successful. But like you say, it could be a complete train wreck. But
I think if there's always that chance. But I think if they if they market him as an NFL genius, and they don't try to have him be rah-rah college coach, I think it could be pretty good. And if you're a defensive player, I mean, no offense, but who could you play for that's better than Bill frickin' Belichick?
No, it's almost impossible to say that you can find someone better.
Yeah, I mean, heck, if Tom Landry was here, he couldn't say he's better than Bill Belichick. So I don't know. I think this could be, depending on how flexible they are and how willing they are to let Bill kind of run it the way he wants to. This could be I think, like I said, it's a high risk, high reward, but I think the reward could be really high. And if, North Carolina has a good, transfer class through the portal, maybe they're, 10-2, 11-1 next year.
This could set the stage for what's going to happen with future hires, because you're going to see more of this happen now. It's like, okay, well, let me go get a guy who can really coach. I don't need Ron Zook. Yes. I need a guy who can really coach, and that's a different thing, right? I mean, so, you're going to see them. We won't have to worry about recruiting. I need guys who can go out and get me NIL dollars, and then let's go buy players, buy our team, because that's what college football is.
Yeah. And I'm not certain it wasn't always that. It's just more open now.
It is. Yeah, it's true. There's a reason that certain teams are always at the top. It's not just because they have a nice stadium.
Yes, I know. And boy, I talk to a lot of Ohio State fans who are just certain they've never paid for anybody. Heat check. We're going to go to basketball now. Number one, heat check number one. The Illini lose to number one Tennessee at home. And I am going to try to sell people, because I got harassed on this last night. I think that this team's developmental journey is a big deal. And I had several thoughts as I watched the game. And I'm going to tell you, we at Illini Guys, Big Sports Radio, we've repeatedly said this is an Illini team that has great potential. If the team is successful at coming together as 10 players who've never played with one another before, and only have one current player who's even played in the Big Ten. And we've also stated that if the coaches and players don't come together as a team, or the players are not developing, this team might have a lower ceiling than some of the past few Brad Underwood-led Illini teams. You agree with that?
Yeah. I think they have a lower floor. Like, I mean, this team could be –
yeah,
you can see them implode. The other thing is, like, you just played the number one team in the country. And then I get, well, they're not really the number one team in the country. Well, they are right now. I don't know if they will be at the end, but most people think they're pretty good, right?
Yep.
So I think they're consistently a great defensive team, and that's year after year. Now the question becomes, do they have enough offense? And I think that's still a concern in their front court. But Tennessee's really good. You just competed them. You went down to the wire. These guys have to learn how to win. Every team goes through it. How do you find a way to win? I mean, think about all the, we go back and we're like, how many times on the message board at IlliniGuys.com do we hear, like, when has Brad Underwood won these games? And I said, do we forget when Ayo Dosunmu made all these game-winning shots? Like, I mean, do you not remember that? I mean, or key shots down the stretch. Well, he's not there anymore. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it makes it, they got to find that guy who at the end of the game can make those plays. Or maybe it may do it differently. Like, and like Brad said, even the next year, it's like, well, we have to do it by committee, whatever. They don't have a Terrence Shannon right now. I mean, they don't have that guy. But I think Kasparis Jonas could be that guy,
Yes.
right? I mean, I think he could be that guy. I think Will Riley by the end of the year can be a guy who can go make game-winning shots because he doesn't fear the moment. So there's a lot of time left in this season, and this team's going to grow. They're going to develop and get better. But I have to give props to this staff on one thing. How many teams have had 10 new guys and they're a top 12, top 11, whatever they are, defensive efficiency team? With nobody back. Like nobody. They have Draven Gibbs Lahorn as the only guy playing. And, they lost the guy who was supposed to be one of their kind of leaders in Ty Rodgers, right? Because he redshirts. I mean, it's insane that they're this good defensively because also before the season, one of our big concerns, Kylan Boswell has elevated his defensive game. And all of them have to a certain extent, but nobody you looked at before this season and said, this guy's a lockdown defender. Which guy was it? There wasn't one, right?
Yeah.
And so,
I agree.
But so the sum has been greater than the, parts, right? The whole has been greater than the parts, right? So that's, I think that's big. I think that's really good. And if they can start getting the offense clicking, they have a chance to be really good at the end of the year. And they got to learn how to win games. And you don't learn how to do that unless you play competitive, close games down the stretch.
And that's what I talk about in a path to development is, the players have to individually improve their skill sets, and they also have to come together as a coherent team, and they have to do it late in the games. And right now, I'm not certain that they still have a full understanding of where their teammates might be on the court offensively or where they might be defensively. And I actually have been really, really excited by where they're at. And I think that the coaching staff's going to have to be challenged as well because they don't have, as you mentioned, an IO, a Kofi, or a TSJ, Terrence Shannon Jr. So they don't have the margin for error. Every once in a while, if Underwood messed something up, that's fine. IO took care of it, and Underwood, in fairness to him, has manned up and taken some of the blame for during the Northwestern and Tennessee loss. And the team is going to have to improve, and obviously the coaching staff's going to have to grow with them. I think what we're seeing here, Brad, is we're seeing a real-time test of how many new team members can be successfully assimilated, if I borrow from the Borg. Yeah, exactly. But how many can be assimilated into one team to be a viable Big Ten and NCAA force? And I think Underwood's going to have to reach back into his JUCO coaching experiences. And he may have to pull some stuff out he hasn't done for 20 years because it worked in a similar set of circumstances.
If he comes out with like a thing on his eye and says resistance is futile, would that be awesome? Would that be awesome or what?
Brad Cutis of Borg.
So, but no, I think you're right. I do think he has to learn and he has to change a little bit because here's the reality. There is, they have, and I'm not saying they haven't made mistakes and they haven't done things, but I think they're learning about their guys even now. You don't learn about guys till you get down in the foxhole, right? I mean, you don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to handle situations until you put them in those situations. And so I think they're learning. They're learning what guys can and can't do and learning how they're best to use them. And I know people say, well, he doesn't make adjustments. We saw it last year. I mean, Dane Danger went from not playing to becoming a key cog. Justin Harmon went from playing 30 minutes a game to not playing, right? I mean, this is what happens, right? He'll adjust, but maybe it's not as fast. But I think he also wants to give these guys an opportunity because you saw them all summer. You saw them all fall, and this is what you came up with. When you get in a game, some guys are better in games or better against certain matchups, and you figure that out as you go along. And also, with all these young guys, they're getting better all the time.
Yes.
And they're changing. And so you're right, the developmental piece is part of it. We've said from the start this team's going to be better in March than it is in December. And it turns out they're actually not too bad in December. I mean, I don't know what, and had they made one shot against Northwestern, or had they made one shot against
Tennessee, you could say the same thing. Yeah.
If they do that and they're 9-1, are they a better basketball team because one ball rolled in? Will Riley had that reverse layup that fell out. Ivasic had the little jump up. Either one of those go in, probably win the game.
Yep.
Okay. If they could inbound a ball without giving up pick 2, probably win the game. You can pick out all these things, but here's the thing. That wouldn't make them necessarily a better, more talented basketball team just because they're 9-1.
Right.
I mean, so that's where you have to look at this. And I'm sure that, I mean, I'm not saying you want to be 7-3. You want to be 9-1 if you could, or 10-0, but it doesn't make you better as a basketball team until later. And it doesn't make you better just because you found a way to win a game here or there. You got to now later on find a way to win games.
Yeah. And I look at this, this reminds me of the late 70s, early 80s when Illinois was starting to put together pieces. And the difference between now and then is every year you could have 10 new guys in theory. So it's a little bit different. The Henson never had a team in the middle of that he had to like restart essentially. But I do think if this team does well in the tournament, then that proves that higher amounts of player turnover may be acceptable on a year-to-year basis. And if that's the case, how you recruit and maintain your players becomes different. And if it doesn't work, then you may be thinking like, how do we maintain the guys we got? I think it's going to be a very interesting experiment. And I tell you what, if you would have told me this team was going to be this good defensively by December, I would have told you to go into counseling.
You told me that.
Yeah. I mean, these guys are unbelievable right now. And I hope they keep it up.
Yeah. Cause if they're going to get better offensively.
Yes.
They have to.
Yes. So then heat check number 2. This is importance of productivity and the value of possessions. And there's plenty of reasons that players are kept on the court. Clearly, the easiest way to stay on the court is to score points. It's really hard for a coach to take out someone who is scoring a lot of points unless they're in really bad foul trouble. But the reality is there's many opportunities for players to contribute, even when their scoring punch is at powder puff levels. The importance of statistics, and particularly within the definition of creating additional possessions for your team or limiting possessions for your opponent, is critical. And Brad, there's 2 areas that I'm going to talk about to get your reaction on one. The first one is rebounding. If a player's on the floor, there needs to be an emphasis on that aspect of the game, not just the stat stuff, because nobody cares if you have 27 rebounds. But what I look at is those rebounds, do they allow the Illini more chances at scoring? Because if the offense doesn't improve, they're going to need more chances to score, and they still might not do it. And also to limit the opponent chances to score, because the defense can only stop an opponent for so long. And less possessions at the other end of the court means they have less shot of scoring. So I'm not talking about I just want to see double digit, but it's the quality of those rebounds is important. And the same is true of turnovers. Now, we know defenders are going to try to steal the ball, and they're going to be successful. The issue is not to be careless of the ball, particularly the nonchalant passes that are gimmies to a defender that the defender doesn't have to really do much. Now, KJ is learning how to play against defenders who are very quick, probably quicker than what he's used to. And they're also allowed to get into his body and knock him off his line, which doesn't happen much in Europe. And I think he has to learn how to maintain control of the ball. And while I think he has been unbelievable on the offensive end, I think if on the turnover things, if he just cuts his turnovers a little bit, and I think it's going to take some practice, if in Tennessee game, if he cuts it from 7 down to 3, that's 4 more possessions where the Illini might get up a shot. And in the midst of a horrible shooting game, maybe you get 1 more shot that goes in because you didn't turn over the ball as much. And if you add in rebounding, then maybe you get a basket or 2 and you stop a possession or 2 for Tennessee and you win. I think that in basketball, the devil's in the details. And sometimes I think improvements in these 2 areas can really elevate Illinois into a high ceiling team. But it's not going to be easy. The nice thing is we've already seen how much better Kasparis has gotten as he adjusts to what's going on. And I think the opportunity for him to figure this out and make the most of the opportunity is pretty high.
I agree. I think he makes some sloppy errors. Now, here's my Here's my counterpoint. Illinois' turnover rate is 15.4%, which is 55th in the country out of 360 teams or whatever. The only time that they have had a better turnover rate, last year they were 15.0. Then in John Gross's next to last year, when they were 15 and 19, they were 14.9, and they were 15.2 in 2015. And that's it. And that goes all the way back, even including the 2005 team that had a 16.5 turnover rate. So I think turnovers are a problem in the sense that I think Casper sometimes tries to do too much, and he had 7 turnovers. But I'm not sure they're as big an issue as a team as they are, because I think there's a couple lackadaisical things. You know what I mean? So I think
I agree. I think it's a little more on an individual basis on this team, because if you this team is remarkably low turnover if you take out and the funny thing is the turnovers are not necessarily ones that they're forced into.
No, a lot of them are just silly turnovers. I mean, just, whatever. I mean, just strange things that happen. But, overall, they've done a pretty good job there. The problem is that Kaspers is the guy who has the ball in his hands most of the time, and that's why he has a higher turnover rate. Riley doesn't turn it over because he's just going to shoot it. If he gets it. Boswell's really gone down his turnover rate. I mean, the other guys really don't handle the ball that much. Humrickhouse either just shoots it or hands it to somebody else. He doesn't really do much. I think he's dribbled like 4 times all year, but maybe more. Maybe it's 5. But I mean, so we just don't see these guys do a lot. That's why the turnover rate's lower. But at the same time, I think Kaspers could make some adjustments there. And the other thing is rebounding. They've actually been a good rebounding team.
They have.
And I'm shocked, because I will tell you if you go back and look at the article I wrote beginning of the year before the season, that was one of my big concerns. I don't know how this team with Ivasic and Humrickhouse and Kylan Boswell and how they rebound that well, but they have been really good at kind of that gang rebounding type thing. And they've done a better job than I expected. Now, are there issues at times? Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee, when you see a team like Tennessee, they're
relentless. In fairness,
they're great. Yeah, and I'm not saying Tennessee isn't a great rebounding team. But, they're 38th in the country in defensive rebounding, and they are 26th in the country in offensive rebounding. Those are pretty good numbers. I mean, you consistently are top 50 in every area, you're going to be okay. But like you mentioned, they've given up some easy offensive rebounds and some weird. The other thing about it, the other reason, like if you look back at that game and you've looked all year, they've given up some offensive rebounds because guys took terrible shots against their defense. And like, how about the other night? The guy shoots an air ball with 4 on the shot clock. And then it's so bad.
Shades of Nick Anderson.
Yeah, it's so bad that the guy gets the rebound and then Trey White gets the foul. Then they get a new shot clock. You got a foul. They could have had the ball back right there if the ball hits the rim.
Exactly.
I mean, if the ball hits the rim, the shot clock, they get the rebound, but instead they get a shot clock reset because of foul. Or if they don't foul, but they probably wouldn't have fouled if it hit the rim because they were not thinking the ball was going to be an air ball, right? So weird things happen. And so those are just kind of the, I kind of look at it that way. Like they've done they are number 1 right now in effective field goal percentage against. Teams are shooting with an effective.
Explain to fans what that is.
So it's 41.4 is their rate right now. So what that does, that takes in 3 points for a 3 and 2 points for a 2. If you shoot 5 out of 10 from 2-point range, you get 10 points, right? So it's 50%, right? 50%. But if you shoot 5 out of 15 from a 3-point range, that's 33%. That's the same as shooting 50%.
Okay.
Because you got 15 points out of 15 shots. It's basically how it rakes out. So that means teams are getting 41.4% because they've done a great job of, a 2-point percentage, they are giving up 42.4% from 2s and 26.4% on 3s. They even defend free throws well. I don't understand how that works. Teams are shooting 61.5% from the line against them, 3rd in the country. So overall, that's one reason why the defense has been good. But so that really surprised me. But that also makes them, when they take bad shots, you get long rebounds, you get bricks, you get air balls, you get weird things. And think about how many we had, in that game yesterday, both ways, just weird things. Just balls just barely hitting the rim, not hitting the rim. Did it hit the rim? Did it not hit the rim? Tips, hitting the rim and not, it was crazy. So it was a really bad offensive game, though, I have to say. But at the same time, I do think this team, there are ways they can grow on a rebounding standpoint. They have some limitations athletically, but I think they've done a pretty good job considering those limitations.
Yeah, I think the limitations, I think the one concern I have from an athletic standpoint is just guys who can get their own shot. And I think that's always a challenge. And you should never eat pizza in front of me without offering me one. That is just so wrong. Oh, oh. Man, I tell you what, I think you have a friend. But I do think that ultimately, I think this team has an opportunity, and I think this is where, again, I go back to the development as they start picking off little things and improving on them. This team has opportunity to be really good because there's a lot of fundamental strengths on this team, and I still wonder, when you look at what guys have individually done on an evening, how tough is this team going to be to beat when Ivasic, Jacusiones, and Boswell and Trey White are all hitting on the same night? I mean, good Lord. They've already put up a tremendous amount of points, and we haven't seen all those guys have a good game on the same night.
Well, Underwood told us that Hum Rickhouse is going to have a game when he hits like 7 threes. We're waiting.
Yes.
So, but when that happens, I think they'll probably win, right? I mean, it's just reality. I mean, and I thought going into that Tennessee game that they had to shoot better from 3 to win that game. They didn't. I mean, they had to make like one more 3. I mean, they could have shot. I thought they had to shoot 30 to 35% from 3 to have a chance. But if they just shot like they did against Arkansas, and I know that's never, they win that game. And I don't know that the looks were that much different. I just think Tennessee closes out so much quicker than Arkansas. They're just so bought in on that end. So.
Yeah, Tennessee is really good defensively. I got to be honest, offensively they remind me a little more of a Kelvin Sampson Houston team because they play really, really tough defense. They get and I think anybody who's played basketball knows when you get a guy who's quicker than you and sometimes even stronger than you and they get underneath you, that is just a nightmare. And those guys are excellent at doing that, and they had the right set of refs. And I thought that Tennessee defense was impressive.
No question.
And guys so was Illinois.
Guys that have length give you trouble, but guys that are super quick and get underneath you, and there's always their pests, man.
Oh, I hated those were the worst thing to play because I just couldn't. It's like you try to move around them, and they're quicker than you, and you're just like I would much rather try to go up against a guy who's longer than I would that strong, quick guy. Just nightmares. So let's go on to our final subject, Hail Mary number 4. In all the excitement yesterday, the fact that Luke Altmyer is returning to the Illini in 2025 almost went unnoticed. Now, here's what I think happened. I think Brett Bielema has been very good this year, and Santa Claus saw that, and the Miser brothers were in a good mood, and bada boom, bada bing, the Illini get a magnificent early Christmas present in the form of Luke Altmyer announcing he will be returning for the 2025 season. When you take a look at the improvement he made from last year, 2023, to this year, 2024, and you put that in combination with a very favorable schedule next year, this Illini team, if they can do well in the portal, we could be looking at back-to-back 9 or 10 game seasons. That's like unheard of in Illini history, or very rarely heard of.
Shoot, they don't go to back-to-back bowls, Mike.
Yes, I know.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's really good. I think the key was when Brett and Barry got together and they went and saw Mother Nature and were able to get Mother Nature. So they were able to get it fixed. But no, I do think, it's huge. Luke Altmyer, getting your guy back is so important. And I get why guys leave, though. I mean, I get why Leary's leaving.
I'm not blaming guys for leaving, Brad.
Not at all. Go take your shot. And I think, because I think that they're going to have a guy like, I think Trey Petty becomes, number 2, and Carson Boyd comes in and probably is 3 or 4. I think they'd like to add another guy to be in there. But yeah, so we'll see. Is Micho, is he in the mix there as the backup or third string, whatever? That's fine. But you got to have some guys on there. But Luke's the guy, and if Luke stays healthy, we're gonna be really good next year. I really believe that, because I think they're gonna add a couple pieces on the offensive line. They're gonna add a couple pieces on the defensive line. Look like they're really doing a good job there.
Yeah, and we keep hearing that they're coming close to hitting their NIL goals, but hey, there's no reason why they can't go over. So if
they
you
have
happen
hit,
to
they,
be a
they have hit
billionaire,
their $6 million goal for next year, which is
but if you're a billionaire and you have some extra money, I am going to go right now, and I'm going to go on record as saying Josh Whitman and Brett Bielema will not stop you from signing a check.
Yeah, you can even Venmo them if you choose. Exactly. They're not picky.
Venmo Josh. Josh looks at his Venmo. Hey, I got $3 million.
hey, Brett. Guess what I just got?
Yeah,
so,
yeah, from Sturdy. So
I could send it.
Yeah, exactly. Just
how would that
go? Be there. Yeah, but I do think that it's kind of amazing to me that this has kind of went under the radar. There hasn't been a lot of talk about it, but you're talking a guy who basically this year. I mean, you take a look, and again, Illinois is not a massive yard producing machine, but 2,543 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. I have to think that offensive linemen have to look at Brett Bielema and what he does to put guys in the NFL, and wide receivers have to be saying, well, Pat Bryant was pretty dang good, and nobody ever thought much of him when he was being recruited. Zachary Franklin is going to attract attention. You look at guys who've went in the NFL the last couple of years. I think this might be a place that wide receivers can find to be a good spot. I think offensive linemen should be interested in playing for Illinois, and I'm really hoping that some of that $6 million can attract a defensive lineman or two to help augment that defensive line. And when I see what they're doing, you have to look at this and you have to say, Aaron Henry, for all the complaining Illini fans do, this defense wasn't supposed to be very good. It was supposed to be paper-thin defensive line with paper-thin linebackers, and yet somehow they win 4 out of 5 one-score games, and they end up 9-3. Not a bad job.
Oh, I thought the coaching staff did a really good job. I mean, really, there was only one game that I feel like they could have won that they lost. I guess they could have won at Penn State, but reality, they were in the game there. They weren't beating Oregon. I mean, they could play them 100 times. They'd probably win one. But the reality is the Minnesota game was the only game they gave away where I felt like they didn't play their best. Didn't do a good job. But, when you can bring it, and I think probably if you look at this, they competed. They brought it in 10 out of 12 games. Maybe not the second half against Purdue, but second half against Purdue and the Oregon game, really the only games where you look and say, in Minnesota, I guess. But, those are the only games that I look at it.
And I got to be honest with you, Minnesota, I'm of two minds on the Minnesota, because that team was better than I thought they would be. And they're getting a lot of looks, NFL draft wise for, 3 different players, I think. I'm not a PJ Fleck guy, but again, I'm not saying Illinois should have lost that game, but I think Minnesota, that loss looks much better than, Alabama going into Oklahoma at 5-6 and losing by 3 touchdowns.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
and being mad that they were held out of the CFP. So, Brad, any final thoughts as we kind of wrap up this show? And we'll obviously release this as a podcast and a YouTube video, but we thought we would do it live. And look, guys, this is the brand. Brad and I don't agree on everything, but we get along and we have fun with it. If you like this type of stuff, you really should tune into the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular, our Illini-centric radio show. You can get that on 23 stations across the state of Illinois on Fridays or Saturday. Go to IlliniGuys.com, hit the radio button, see what's closest to you. If you don't have time to listen to it on the radio, you can get it from your favorite podcast distributor. Just subscribe to it so it gets delivered right to your smartphone. We also do Big Sports Radio. That is our Big Ten-centric and big event of the weekend centric show. That's on across the Midwest. And if you'd like to do that, you can again get that at your favorite podcast distributor, or you can go to Big Sports Radio and check on the radio tab and see where it's played if it's in your neighborhood. The bottom line is we try to keep it where we don't yell at players, we don't scream at players, we just have fun. You know, a couple hours a week, or when you're listening to our programming.
Just what Mike said.
We want you to be able.
Do you need a drink, Mike?
I do, and here I am, Coke Zero-less. But when you're listening to our stuff, we want you to be able to enjoy it and turn it off where you're not mad at the end of it. We leave that to other entertainment venues, and we'd ask you if you want to join IlliniGuys.com. It's only 27 cents a day, $99 a year, and you get all of our stuff with the paywall. You don't have to worry about it. You get some of the stuff early, but most importantly, you get a message board that you can read an article from Ked or Matt or Brad or Larry or myself. And it's not just a one way you read it and walk away. You can sit there and go back and say, what did you mean by this? Or I disagree with you. And we have a bunch of Illini fans from around the world who are on there posting a lot of talk during games, after games, a lot of arguing, a lot of agreements. But it's a great community to be a part of, and we'd like more people to be there. And of course, in today's world, we're going to try to give you programming. It might be easier for us to yell and scream at people, and we'd probably get more people watching, but we're doing what we want, which is to cover sports and have fun and keep it enjoyable. Hopefully you'll like that. Brad, anything you got before I sign her off here?
Yeah, no, I think this is a huge month for Illinois sports. I mean, I think when you go through the bragging rights game and then starting it off the Big Ten, and then you have football playing in the what a huge, fun time. The women's basketball team, clicking. They got to get healthy, but I mean, they're clicking, playing well. They're on a good pace, 9-2 just right now. It's fun. It's a good time to be following Illinois athletics. It's a good time. They're in a good place. They really are. And the future's very bright with the current people they have in place in many of the sports. So should be a lot of fun to keep your eye open and join Illini Guys and come see what we have to say and give us what you have to say.
Yeah, that's what we want. That makes it a little different. We really enjoy that interaction with our subscribers. We have a lot of the subscribers that we consider friends. And that's kind of why we did this. And then one final thing, of course, we try to do live halftime shows when we can. Most of the games we will do that. And I can tell you the Missouri game, we're working on a guest for the Missouri halftime game. So we will see if we can get a guest on, and we try to make it really fun. A few weeks ago, we had Grant Bierman, when the 4-star linebacker that Illinois needs so badly, when he flipped from Purdue to Illinois, he came on halftime, and we got a chance to see what a fantastic kid he is, and I'll try to get ex-Illini and other people to come on during halftime and have some fun and make it enjoyable. And we try to make it a good experience for Illini fans. And then you don't have to listen to the talking heads unless it's Steve Bardo, since he's an Illini alum, then you can stay tuned in. But if it's not Bardo, turn on us at halftime. We'll keep you entertained. Or obviously Brian Barnhart. We don't want to cut into Brian's business, Brian and Dion, because Dion's way bigger than us. So with that, folks, we will tell you thank you so much for listening and watching. We will be back next Sunday night. Until then, man, keep moving forward.